We have the
Hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Geopolitics in Conflict Show. Excited to be with you. I'm here with my co-host Elizabeth. We're gonna be talking today about a very interesting topic. This one has to do with the statement by Saudi Arabia, a straightforward diplomatic slap to the United States. That's how I interpret it. And because there are a lot of dynamics going on, so I'm gonna provide certain shall we say analysis, shall we say assessment, perspective, to really put certain the dots on the letter for you guys to see the big picture. This is what we're going to be tackling today. I know the Arab-Israeli conflict issue is a very, very, very hot, sensitive topics, and emotions are run so high. That's usually what happens with very complicated issues. But it's so easy for us to lose sight of when people get too emotional. You know, they tend to just like not see the full picture, not the big picture, by thinking that, oh, you are siding with this or siding with that. None of that nonsense anyway. So anyway, first of all, I would like to say this to you guys. If this is your first time on this channel, please make sure to subscribe. We will greatly appreciate it. Second thing, if you care to support this channel, become either a channel member or channel supporters. We would greatly appreciate that one. And we also have the newsletter.
Yep, we have a newsletter. If you go to geopoliticsandconflict.com, it's absolutely free and it goes out every single week.
Yeah. And we have the book.
Yes.
The free book.
So we have one of David's books we're giving away for free. I don't know if you guys know this about David or not, but he has written 4 books and co-written 2.
And 146 articles.
146 articles and about 3 decades of experience.
yes. For those who might not
and
know.
a PhD.
Yeah, my PhD was in international security. So just FYI for those who might not know what my background is, that qualifies me to talk about geopolitics. So anyway, let's get into this topic because it's a very, very the way I look at it, surprising, but it's not surprising. Surprising in one way that the Saudis now coming forward to the US, because that means what? That means they don't perceive the US as they used to. Yes, the security of Saudi Arabia has always been tied under the umbrella of the US. I served in Middle East. I was in Saudi Arabia. I worked in Saudi Arabia on behalf of the US government. So I'm very familiar with the military structures. As a matter of fact, and I'm going to share this with you, it's not classified, I was assigned one time to take care of a particular agenda for the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy.
That's interesting.
And it was Dr. Michael Vickers, who was traveling to the Saudis, and I was asked to take care of some stuff for him there. So I'm very familiar with how it works. But now with the Saudis' decision like this, by saying to the US, you need to stop Israel from, to me, that direct highlights something very important. And that the shift in the geopolitical landscape in the Middle East is upon us. Whether we want to accept it or not, we in the West. That coincides with other events. For example, I got a word. I can't confirm it yet. Listen carefully. I can't confirm it yet. I will look into it. That the Russians might be sending their military personnel to Gaza. That's one. Second thing, the other one is that China is sending more warships to the Middle East. I'm still working on confirming those two. Because if these two events are confirmed, that coincide with the Saudi statements about the US need to order Israel to stop. Or we will step in. This is what the Saudi is saying. The third or fourth element to this, for the Saudis to say this, that means there is a pre-arrangements with Iran. And remember, if you all remember, guys, how were we managing the Middle East? By maintaining the division between the two pillars in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia and Iran. Not anymore. As a matter of fact, 3 days ago, Saudi prince the de facto leader in BS, made a phone call and had a conversation with the Iranian president, Raisi.
Yeah. Which is historic.
Yeah. So to me, that tells me all this, how significant for the Saudis now to come forward and say to the US, you're going to need to do this or we will step in.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of calls in the Arab world. What the heck with all this Arab world holding those weapons for?
Yeah.
You know how much weapons Saudis buy?
A lot.
Anytime, if you happen to be an American watching this, anytime our economy goes down or unemployment goes up, you know what the Saudis do?
Buy weapons.
They write a check for $60 billion and buy weapons.
Yep.
All of a sudden, unemployment goes down.
Yeah.
But that era is coming to an end because we already don't see eye to eye with the de facto leader, Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Mohammed bin Salman also had to think about it in terms of, because his dad is an elderly, his days are numbered. That just his
life.
older. It's life. But the prince, which to the calculation of the US is that, oh my gosh, we're gonna be dealing with this guy for the next 5 decades, assuming he lives that long. Even though I still hold my thinking that he might not make it. That's exactly what happened. Similar situation in 1975 with the assassination of King Faisal by none other than his nephew. So I detailed all this in the book. So my point is this: the prince, we are concerned about where the prince is taking not only Saudi Arabia, but the whole Middle East.
Yeah.
Where is he taking it?
Right.
East. And for him to step forward to the US, and he told this to, I have a link here, I'm going to share it with you guys, so just for you to see. The delegation from the US, share right here. Those are 10 senators, member of Congress, they want in. And if you look at...
I can't see it. Oh, there it is. Yeah. There it is.
Is it big enough or... No, let me make it bigger here. Full screen. There we go.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. And if you look at least the 3 known for this, you get Blumenthal right here. I'm pointing at it. You get the idiot Lindsey Graham. Then you get Kuhn. All of them are hardliner pushing for a war against Iran.
Yeah.
And now they are shocked to hear what the Saudis told them directly. It's a very, very, very significant. Western media is not giving it enough coverage.
Well, of course, Western media is not giving it enough coverage. And right now, I think this is a very interesting tie into what's happening here in the US government at the same time.
Yeah.
Because right now we're having a real fight for continued aid for Israel and continued aid for Ukraine. And so I do think that that's a very interesting tie because, we're facing another government shutdown here in the United States in 2 weeks. And another one, we're facing another government shutdown. And one of the biggest, hottest topics is the conflict. Do we send more billions to Israel and do we send more billions to Ukraine?
Yeah.
And so, you talk about nothing happens in a vacuum.
Yeah. Well, it's just so it really puts me ashamed as an American.
Yeah.
And I don't shy away from saying it. I looked at the vote at the UN, the United Nations. 120 countries, 120 voted for supporting the humanitarian aid to the Gazans. 124. 14 countries objected. And you know who is the top at the list?
Yeah.
The United States.
Yep.
I was even surprised to find out one of the countries in those 14 is Hungary.
Wow. Oh, Hungary.
I was shocked and surprised.
Interesting. Yeah.
Fiji is another one. Papua New Guinea is another one. So then you have 45 countries abstain, including, I think, Germany. But that's not the point. The point is, for us as Americans, when we call for these ideals of rule of law and democracy, here is an example where those are human lives. I understand the nastiness of conflict. Military ones, that is. But I also understand civilians shouldn't be targeted.
Right.
So let's just be fair. let's state the fact as they are. What Israel did by attacking civilians is wrong. Yes, we agree that any life, any human life on either side, it's not worth targeting. That's
Right.
you know,
Israelis also.
yeah.
Both,
Oh yeah,
on
we
both
gotta be
sides,
fair. We gotta be
both
fair.
sides.
But what Israel ended up doing, when you target hospitals, when you target where civilians are defenseless. It was the same thing. And I'll say it, it was the same thing the Saudis did in Yemen when it was the war in Yemen, because we were the one providing intelligence to the Saudis. Saudis couldn't fly their stuff without us being there. That's just been the norm. I've been there. I'm aware of how things are. Saudis will not move an inch without, I want to say thank you here to KL.
Oh, thank you, KL. Thank you for your support. We really appreciate it.
Really appreciate that.
Well, so the bigger question here, I think, really has to do with the normalization between relations between Saudi and Israel. And
I'll take this back. I'll push back against you. First of all, there is no normalization anymore.
All right,
it's frozen.
It. Yes,
it's frozen.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah,
I don't see the Saudis normalizing any relations. The 4 countries that they did: United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Morocco, and Sudan. 4 of them. They are now in a bad spot. In a bad spot because that's the way perceived in international relations. Context matters.
Absolutely.
Optics matters. This is where the issue is. So the Saudis now stopped. But to me, the hint is that when the Saudis saying to the Americans, you either tell Israel to stop or we are getting in, that tells me right there, they have no interest now in normalizing any relations with. As a matter of fact, the prime minister of Israel, he's a dead man walking, politically speaking.
Yes.
You know, he shot himself in the foot. Israel, here is the hard truth. As one whose former unit, my former military unit, it used to be the one that did rotations to Egypt. So we were familiar with the size, the strength of the Egyptian military divisions. You know how many tanks Egypt has? Massive. So if Israel thinks that they're gonna just go and barge into Gaza, it's a suicide.
Well, and they've made some headway on foot, it seems, but it's nothing compared to what I think people were concerned about happening.
Because they couldn't. Israel couldn't go in. Israel won't be able to go in on its own. The fact is that Israel cannot fight on its own.
And that's what I was talking about in terms of the aid packages. In the fact that our Congress basically is torn in a bunch of different directions.
But
fundamentally, it's very possible that aid is not going to go through to either place. And then the question is, where is Israel without the United States? And that's a very precarious position for them to be in, because without US weapons and without US funding, what are they going to fight the war with? What are they going to fight with?
Well, that's why those statements about Israel is going to attack Iran, even the US itself. The US will have to think twice. If we are thinking that Iran today is the same Iran that was 30 years ago, we are mistaken. The same mistake. Some of our politicians still think about China. If they are still thinking that China today is the same as China's of 30 years ago, they are mistaken. And when we think about the military capabilities in both locations, in China and in Iran, if you only, I had to read up 2 days ago. Just that's once in a while I'll do this just to keep up with about the advancements in the missile technology in Iran. Oh my gosh! I'm not saying that they're gonna dominate. No, but they do have the capabilities to defend themselves, and this is what prevents us and the Israelis from attacking Iran. Israel can't do it by itself. Israel find out. As a matter of fact, these tensions now that happens with the October 7 attack and so forth. It really exposes the weakness of the Israeli military. Psychologically, they are so demoralized to the point that they know if they go into Gaza, I mean, if you guys saw the images, the rubble,
It's
the
absolute
destruction.
rubble. Yeah.
Well, that's the perfect setting for street fighting.
Yeah.
And if they think because they have this technology and all that stuff, they ain't gonna cut it. We went through the same in Iraq.
Yeah.
I went later after to Fallujah, happened to be passing there, and I was like, well, I wonder why we couldn't defeat.
Right.
Well, we couldn't defeat because we are not equipped for this kind of stuff.
Right.
Just because we have this mighty power military, that it doesn't work that way. So Israel now is realizing, and Netanyahu is realizing that it's too late for him anyway.
Yeah.
So, and that to me, what gave the opportunity to the Saudis to step forward with these statements. Saudis also have to think in terms of their leadership in the Arab and the Muslim world.
Yes, they do.
That is another
Yes,
reason
they do.
for why they're saying this. Why is that, you may ask? Well, as a geopolitical analyst, I have to think in terms of what could the prince, the de facto leader, thinking for the next 10, 20, 50, or even 50 years, because he's young. He's not 38.
There's optics here for him. Absolutely.
For sure. Like I always argued, for the most of the Arab world, the Palestinian cause is one of the justifications to show, of course, the support. I'm not denying this, but also to divert sometimes. In the case of Saudi Arabia, it's not about that. It's about realizing that if they don't step in, because Iran is now on the scene. Iran already mentioned that if Israel goes in, Iran's going to come in. So if Iran comes in, you're looking at Iran, Syria, and Lebanon. The US is going to go with Israel. What do you think China and Russia will do?
Right.
What do you think with other countries like Turkey will do? So those are not a small movements, be it diplomatically or tactically. Those, because they will reshape the battleground on both fronts, on the political side and on the military side. Israel, understand, this is why I am yet to confirm if really Russia is going to send their personnel.
Well, and it's very interesting because Russia and China have not been silent on this, and they have not been inactive in this. We did our last actual live stream was about the fact that China was sending military vessels into those waters.
Yeah, those usually a lot of people did not understand that sometimes. China's presence militarily from the naval asset, it's been there since 2008.
Right. Yes.
But this is not in addition, and sometimes they have to go with the rotation.
Yeah.
The one I just mentioned now is about the new warships that they are going. Some of them are, as a matter of fact, I did have one of the detail, if I may share it with you guys here, because you need to understand really what is going on with
and part of my understanding is that some of those ships actually are there for humanitarian aid.
That is correct. But main of China's military presence there, it has to do with the, what you call them? Security for the oil.
Yeah.
That is the reason. Let me just look.
Well, and guys, I also want to say David is an absolute subject matter expert on the Middle East. So in some ways, I'm actually very curious on some of your takes, especially, and we'll dive into this after we talk about China's involvement here. But, I'm very interested in David's take in how this, if the conflict does escalate or does go further, let's say that Israel really does decide that they're going to really go into,
which they won't.
Right. Let's say they do, right?
Okay.
So to what extent does that really destabilize the Middle East right now? Because this is not a circumstance, which is very interesting. This isn't a circumstance where there's just these two entities, right? It's not just Hamas and it's not just Israel. So right now we're watching many countries actually start to sort of get more and more involved and keeping a very close hand and eye on the situation. So I'm interested in your take on, if it does progress further, how would that really destabilize the Middle East? Because right now there's some precarious situations here that are inflaming old wounds.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, if we are to talk in these terms of, because the whole scenario itself is unlikely, because Israel cannot go alone. that means the US will go in with. And if the US go in with, which means what? It becomes a part of the conflict.
Right.
We are already a part to the conflict,
Hugely.
whether we want to admit it or not.
Hugely.
We are. I mean, we had the lieutenant general going over to Israel to what for?
Right.
You know, if you are to do this, that means you are part of it.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Because the commandant of the Marines, the 4-star general, saying, oh, no, it's going to be Israel decision. No. If you are part of the planning, you are part of it. So you own up to it, the outcome of it.
Right.
And this is why even the Israelis and the Americans understand the gravity of it. This is why Israel has said, we always say, the United States say, oh, Israel has not made a decision. We're the one who control that decision, whether to go in or not.
Well, and if the United States basically said we support a ceasefire, I wonder if
look at the vote.
Happen,
look
right?
at the vote at the UN.
Yeah.
If we had the intention of truly supporting the ceasefire, we would have voted for it.
Absolutely.
We objected to that, even in the Security Council.
Yeah.
Because the vote in the UN, there was General Assembly.
Yeah.
Then you have the UN Security Council with the 5 permanents. Well, 4 countries objected to it. And one observant member. You have Japan, the United States, France, and what was the 4th one? UK. They objected to a Russian proposal for allowing humanitarian. This is all about humanitarian aid,
right?
And we are objecting to it.
And I remember that the argument was, well, what if there's stuff in the humanitarian aid, right? What if there's weapons? What if there's whatever in the humanitarian aid? Then just check the humanitarian aid. Just go in and check it and see if it has those things. If it doesn't, let the humanitarian aid through.
But it won't, because now they are. I think Israel put itself in a bad situation, thinking that, because that here is where I see the challenge for the West to understand the dynamics in the Middle East. Thinking about isolating Hamas as a group and labeling it as one of a terrorist group, it's not going to hold. Here is why: because that group is part of the makeup of the society in Gaza or whole Palestine. It's part of society.
Well, it has been for a while.
Yeah. It's not gonna, it won't work. The West now is trying to label that one in that category. I know we can't say this one, I think. So you all understand.
We have a Rumble channel, guys. If you want a little bit more, go to our Rumble channel.
So that is the reason why. It's not gonna hold. But the fear for Israel, it's not from the Hamas group. It's major fear. You know where it's from? Can anybody type in the answer? Where is the fear of Israel really lies? I'll check the answer in a few seconds here and we see. And this is why the dynamics of this expanding beyond, this is why Israel couldn't go in. It's not about what we have to think about. There was some rumors saying that the US requested from Israel not to do that. Tell US military personnel are deployed. And we did deploy about 2,000.
2000.
And you tell me we're not part of the problem?
No, and that's really what I was bringing up earlier is, as we are having, as basically our Congress right now is fighting because we don't have the money to keep our government running. And so we very recently had, we had to extend the debt ceiling again and again and again, right? So now we're facing another government shutdown in 2 weeks. We faced that not very long ago. I mean, what was it, 2 months ago? And so now we're running out of money again. And so that really is my big question is what really is the US thinking in terms of continuing, basically, because right now we're funding 2 conflicts. Because if the US stopped funding the Israeli conflict immediately, if the US sent no more money, I have very big question about whether they would all of a sudden support a ceasefire, because there's no money being funneled into the conflict anymore. And so would Israel be able to keep up what they're doing without financial support from the United States?
But there is the other reality, is that our government can't do it. Members of Congress, because remember, our laws are in the hands of Congress, not the president. President is nothing but just a mouthpiece it's the Congress that decides. But members of Congress are so scared of the Jewish lobby.
Yeah.
Or the Israeli lobby. I'm sorry, not Jewish lobby, Israeli lobby.
Yeah.
There's a big difference there. This is
Yeah.
why this whole issue of the Jewish state versus the Zionism, those are two separate things.
Yeah.
A lot of people confuse the two. That's not the same.
Yeah.
You know, and it's so complicated. It takes more than 1 hour to over.
Oh, it's so
A
complicated.
lot of people think,
So
you know,
complicated.
sometimes we provide certain coverage of certain topics just from there is no way you can cover the Arab-Israeli conflict in 30 minutes,
Right.
15 minutes,
Even
an
an
hour,
2
2 hours.
Yeah.
There is no way. If you
Absolutely.
only go back, this is with the assumption that you go back to the biblical time and so forth.
Yeah.
Well, we're not here for that.
Right.
You know, and I'm not a religious scholar. I don't get involved in conversation about religions and all that stuff. All I could do is provide you at least a snapshot, a frame, if you will, for you to just at least have a basic understanding. And if you are interested more, you do your own research. That's the bottom line to it. The one thing for sure is that the history of the Middle East is so complicated.
Yes.
This is why the Brits never understood
Yes.
when they start carving out those countries. They never understood the social settings, the religious ethnicities, or the religious denominations. They didn't understand all the language barriers, the linguistic changes between each region. And this is why tribes still today in the Middle East carries weight.
Yeah.
Go no further to the Gulf states.
Yeah.
And you see the importance of tribes. Same was in Iraq, same in Syria, same in Jordan, same in Libya, same in, you name it.
Yeah.
Tribes play a major role because it's part of the culture.
Yeah.
The whole Middle East part of it, how it started. Oh, usually we call it the Middle East. Yes, I know. Some call it the Western Asia, which is true also. I always provide two words for it, because in Western mindset, you say Western Asia, they're going to be staring at you like zombies. They're not going to understand.
Yeah, absolutely.
In literature, when you do the research, you'll find both. That's like when I say something, I say both. I say, for example, Indo-Pacific, but I also say Asia-Pacific.
Yeah.
No. When you are addressing Western audience, they're not going to understand.
No.
Because they don't know.
No, they've never heard of
that
it.
Is
they've
the
never
reason
heard of
why.
it called that.
Yes, you guys, some of you are absolutely correct when you say Western Asia, which is true.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the world map, you'll see it right there.
Right.
I don't see it over here.
It's over there. It's behind.
Something
It's
small
behind
over
you.
Anyway, but that is the whole idea of understanding the complexity of it. And now with this Arab-Israeli conflict, because it's a long history, and now Israel finding itself, what have we done?
Yeah.
And when I say Israel, remember, not the people.
Right. Absolutely.
Not the people. Wonderful people. I have Jewish friends.
Yeah. We have friends in Israel right now.
Yeah.
We are very much sending our love to.
Yeah. It's not, same thing with the Palestinians. Wonderful people. I worked with some.
Yeah.
Back in Washington. Oh, they'll take the coat out of their back and give it to you. That's the culture. That's how they are. But again, you don't label everybody. And this is what we're trying to do, guys, is provide you just the argument here. You reach your own conclusions. Who are we to decide for you? So when some of you lash out with certain comments that have no bear in reality, that's kind of insulting. And I usually tend not to get upset over it because I respect people's opinions, as long as they are respectful.
Right.
I will not tolerate nonsense.
Right.
You don't like it, unsubscribe and get on with your life. Simple as that. That's the way I look at it. Because if you couldn't hear and accept a different point of view, then there is something fundamentally wrong that you need to look into.
Yep, I agree.
Inward. We are not here to tell you what you want to hear. We are here to provide an objective assessment to the best of our abilities and let you reach your own conclusion. I always say truth matters. Same thing. But what else do you do at the end? You forgive.
Absolutely.
I do forgive. I don't take it personally. I've been in very bad situations in my career that I came on alive. So this water over the bridge, as we say.
Well, and also, because when you get very intense situations like the ones that we're facing, there's a lot of trolls, because the reality is that there are efforts to guide you person watching, and our opinions about certain things. So guide our opinions and try and make people believe one thing or another thing. So there's always an active campaign going on with that. I mean, we see it during election cycles. We see it during major world events. For how long was the narrative that this was not about NATO for the Russia-Ukraine conflict? How long did we have that for, right? Until all of a sudden, Jens Stoltenberg came out and said, well, it was actually about NATO, right? And everybody realized that the narrative had actually been being pushed in one direction or another. The interesting part about this conflict is that there were so many different sides here that not everybody agreed on the same narrative.
Yeah.
And that is more accurate because, like you're talking about, the situation is so complicated that to just have a one single headline or one single event could not possibly cover what's going on.
And the second thing, and we'll move on from this, differences of opinion is very important to move a conversation forward. This is how we learn from each other, guys. Because to me, I don't look at this just to come in front of a camera and who gives a damn about all that. But I am here to learn from you as well. It goes both ways. That's to me the way I look at it. Let me say thank you to Renee Kalusia. Free Palestinians, we are on one beautiful family in the center of the whole universe. Let's unite and make flat earth great again. Love one another. That's an interesting. Thank you so much for your super sticker. So we appreciate it.
Well, and I appreciate the sentiment actually, because ultimately I think one of the things I can't speak for you, David, but I think you probably also feel the same, that we're here to fight for peace. We're here to bring peace to the world. And one of the ways to do that is to search for the truth instead of just listening to the headlines, instead of just saying, okay, well, this is the official narrative. This has to be true. It is exactly what you were talking about, David, is go and find the opinions that are different than your own. And go figure out what's actually happening in the world.
Speaking of trolls, yesterday I had to do a live stream on the other channel.
Yes.
And I was talking about the decision by Qatar that is going to execute 8 former Indian naval officers who were caught spying for Israel. The timing of it, of course, couldn't be. Because even Qatar itself stepped forward and said Israel needs to stop. So you can just see the directions from. And the massive amount of troll that I was looking at that, and it kind of, even with that, I saw one. I shared it with the viewers because you can. Well, I ain't gonna hide from it. You shared it. Here is what you guys need to be aware of and see. Of course, you could tell the sentence wasn't structured grammatically correct, and right there I could tell. But that's beside the point. It's highlighting now the idea of why all of a sudden Saudis are saying this, and to me, I could see the writing on the wall. I've been seeing the writing on the wall the moment, when I saw that, the moment President Xi visited Saudi Arabia and the red carpet treatment he was given, which was right after, I think. It was after, I believe, after Biden's visit, which was with the hand fist. Remember?
Yep.
The hand fist.
And I do remember, as we were going through a lot of the oil stuff, when Biden called the Saudis, they hung up the phone. And so that was officially, in my view, that was officially the end of that era.
And this is one now to think about hypothetically. Let's just go with the scenario of what if? What if Israel decided to go all the way into Gaza? Again, I don't see that happening. But here is the problem. What is Israel trying to do? It's trying to push Gazans into the Sinai. Well, Sinai Peninsula, Egyptians are not going to allow that because the Egyptians already moved 2 divisions. Egypt has about 2 divisions, by the way. Heavily armed. My unit used to rotate in Egypt. That was part of... So I was very familiar with it. From that time, let alone we giving them on a yearly basis back then was about, I think, $2.1 billion on a yearly basis.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
That's a
even
big
for
thing.
Egypt, I don't shy away from saying it, the massive corruption at the helm of power. Because who controls the economy in Egypt? Does anybody know?
Oh, we asked another question actually earlier in the chat.
Yes.
Did you
And I even forget the question.
I also did. Guys, if you answered that question, answer it again.
Yeah, let me see here.
Sorry, it's way up in the chat now.
Well,
okay.
We'll see it. Okay.
Okay.
But anyway, the who controls the
who controls
the
Egypt?
economy?
Yeah,
the economy in Egypt is the military.
Yeah.
Not. This is why you always see the leaders of the Egypt, if you go way back, all of them came from military background.
Yeah.
Anwar Sadat was military. Jamal Abdel Nasser was military. Hosni Mubarak was military. And now the current guy, Sisi, is a military. He's the one who conducted the coup.
Yeah.
And here is the ironic of all this, which a lot of people do not know. I disclosed this in the book. Did you know that the Egyptians, when they vote, they conducted the democratic votes?
Right.
They didn't want Sisi. Sisi took over because we and the Saudis gave him the green light to take over the coup.
Yeah.
Because he was the guy, his name Mohamed Morsi, who won the elections. Mohamed Morsi was not a military guy. We didn't like that.
Yeah.
And I asked the question in the book, well, if we are to believe in a democracy, the vote, and the outcome comes up to not our liking, why should we reject it? Isn't that what democracy is all about?
Because this is one of the most interesting concepts to me. Okay. Yeah. Because people seem to think that, it's absolutely not possible for large corporate interest or the US government to do things like that, right? To displace leaders. Well, if you look back through history, that happens all the time.
Yeah.
Number one, but it's strange to me that people don't understand that people in power want to stay in power. So the United States, as the hegemon, wants to stay that way. So if a leader comes up that goes against the interest of basically keeping power and stability, what is to say that they wouldn't do something about that? Right? Just kind of roll over and say, well, okay, I guess you guys don't want our power and our hegemony anymore. Yeah. So I guess we're just gonna, roll over and leave you guys alone.
Yeah.
That's crazy to think that.
That's true. So I found the answer.
Oh, okay.
And Georgia answered is Iran. Yes, Iran to a degree, but that's not the one I was referring to. The one I was referring to is Hezbollah, which is in Lebanon. So this Israel fears Hezbollah more so than it does Hamas. Yeah, of course, Iran is a full structured force. Even Iraq couldn't defeat Iran. Yeah. And we were supplying weapons to both. Yeah. As a matter of fact,
that's very important.
Yeah, we were supplying weapons to both. As a matter of fact, it was always a conversation inside the Israeli government as far as, there was always a strategic interest between Iran and Israel. A lot of people do not know.
Yeah. Say a little bit more about that, because I think that's very important.
It's very complicated to understand the dynamics of this, especially after the revolution that took place. And Israel was looking at it in a way that, because here's the thing, if there is peace in the Middle East, Israel is in jeopardy.
That's very interesting. Say a little bit more about that too.
Well, because you want to have conflicts in the Middle East for Israel to maintain that edge. Military, because that will be the justification for why we have to arm Israel to the teeth. And the idea was, when, for example, you look at the history of Iran when the Shah was over, because who put the Shah in? We did. After we disposed of in a coup Mossadegh. We're the one who did that. It's kind of because Mossadegh was elected democratically by the Iranian people.
Yeah.
So how come we didn't like the outcome? That's my point. So Israel looked at it in terms of the strategic interests of both Israel and Iran could align, but it was always that idea of peace in the Middle East. If there is peace in the Middle East, it's not going to bode well for Israel.
Yeah.
This is why you're seeing all of a sudden the last 2 decades or so, the change in posture from the Israeli government towards Iran, especially when Netanyahu came to power in 1996. And that's how things start to evolve. Because if you go to Iran, you will find the Jewish people living in Iran unprotected.
Yeah.
Because they are the Jewish people in Iran.
Mhm.
There were Jewish people in Iraq.
Mhm.
There are Jewish people in all over, and there's nothing wrong with that. They live like every other citizen. They're protected. They are like every other citizens. So
Mhm.
they happen just to be of descent, of Jewish descent. So, but that was the whole narrative. Now that the miscalculations of Israel is coming back now,
Yeah.
big time. Which
Yeah.
means what? That means the U.S. will have to get involved. And even if Israel does it alone,
Oh, which I don't.
well, hypothetically,
Yeah.
we go with the argument, does it alone?
Okay. Yes.
It's going to
hypothetically.
only have one option. What is that option?
Yeah. What is that option?
Nukes.
I didn't-
Oh, don't be
Yeah.
surprised. Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised. They will
Oh,
use.
that's a bad idea.
Well, it is a bad idea, but do you think other countries are not going to retaliate?
That's what I'm saying. That's a terrible idea.
Yeah. If they think just because they have the nukes available, that doesn't mean other countries who have access to nukes elsewhere.
Yeah. No, there are a lot of other countries that have nukes.
Elsewhere, without detailing this because it's still classified.
Yeah.
I'm still bound by the law. I
Yeah.
can't get it talking to that. But there are countries in the Middle East who possess a nuclear device, but it's not located in their country. That's all I can say about that one. So if you are to think that Israel will do, which will be a suicide anyway,
Yes.
that will be a
do that.
suicide. It will be, even now you think about what shocks me the most, that Germany now, Germany, the Olaf Scholz wants to Israel to support for this, not realizing maybe what Germany has experienced or what the Jewish people have experienced before. And it makes you just now, they want to do the same. That just defies logic. It really defies logic when you start, because they are starving now. They are about, based on the last number that I saw, you're looking at about 1.2 million people having a hard time now getting electricity and water. So this is why now Elon Musk being, so he said he's gonna start Starlink for them in Gaza, and he's getting a pushback heavy here in Washington. Even for Musk himself, I don't, he's playing with whatever.
He's playing his own game.
I've said this before. So one thing is factual, is that should Israel goes into Gaza the way it's been arguing, because now that argument is not holding anymore. Because those people when I say those people, meaning the groups that exist in Gaza and other parts of Palestine, they don't fear Israel. Why? Because what took place in October 7th exposes the failure of both the military and intelligence apparatus. Whether they knew about it or not is beside the point. It exposes now. That's how vulnerable it is. And this is without this is without having even Hezbollah gets involved. Hezbollah gets involved, which, by the way, Hezbollah just rocketed some locations inside Israel. We don't hear much about it. But it did.
It's interesting what we're hearing and what we aren't hearing here in the West.
No, this will be
very interesting.
You look at Germany banning now demonstrations, France banning demonstrations. The major demonstrations that's taking place is in the UK, based on what I saw.
Well, and they're also in the whole censorship.
That tells you right there where the narrative is going.
They're really trying to push it. The problem is that they can't control the narrative from everywhere.
No.
And there are very many other parts of the world that support Palestine, basically, that support the other side. And really what we're looking at is a humanitarian crisis in both
human
in
civilians.
all fronts.
It's and the Saudis approach to this, I think it's calculated. If I am to guess, knowing how the Saudi political machine works, as one who worked there, we dealt with their governments at the highest level. I was part of certain talks, so I'm not speaking on the whim of my.
Well, no, and honestly,
I've been there.
I for those of you just joining us, David is a real subject matter expert in this. What is your PhD? Is in international security. 3 decades, 6 books later. Like, David is a real subject matter expert on this, and I actually love learning from you
Well, we
because
all learn from each other.
what you were talking about in terms of the complexity of what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't simple.
No,
this
no, no,
isn't
no.
as simple as one side and one
No.
side. This isn't simple.
No.
This is actually very complicated. And in some ways, it has a British colonial start to it that no one is talking about. No one is talking about how the Brits actually created this problem to begin with. No one is talking about that.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that actually should really be talked about.
And I make no bone about it. Jewish people have the right to exist. Palestinian people have the right to exist. The Aborigine people have the right to exist. The Indian people here in the US have the right to exist. When it comes down to human being, all have the right. Who are we to decide you should live, you shouldn't live? Who gave us that right or that authority? It shouldn't. It shouldn't. I might disagree with you. I might not be happy with what you say. But not to the point of taking you out. And justly. Now, it's a different story if you are coming to my home and invading my place. I'm going to have to take you out one way or another. Because you are violating my private home, my family, I ain't gonna be negotiating with you. I have to eliminate the threat.
Right.
Simple as that. But on the other hand, you can't just be operating from that mindset. Whomever disagree with me, I gotta take him out. It doesn't work that way. Right. The world doesn't operate that way. So the idea for us to understand is where the problem within the Israeli government, especially Netanyahu, because remember, there is division inside the Israeli government. They are divided, really, because they don't see where Netanyahu is taking. Jewish people here in New York are demonstrating against Netanyahu. People in Tel Aviv are demonstrating against Netanyahu. We don't hear much about it. But the idea to think of the Saudis, to go back to our key topic, the Saudis, the timing of it. This is not a coincidental, guys. It's not a coincidental. Saudis had calculated the approach to all this. They are seeing the waning of the U.S. leadership in the Middle East. They're seeing the Chinese increasing their footprint in the Middle East. They're seeing the Gulf state, GCC, the Gulf Cooperation Council, might enter into a free trade agreement with ASEAN. They're seeing Iran is getting stronger. Even Saudi Arabia and Iran rebuilding their relationship, diplomatic one. They're even going to enter into some investments. I don't see them doing the military cooperation. I don't see that happening, but I do see the economic aspects. Even Turkey now is saying, we need to step in. But they all converge on that idea of there is a red line somewhere. There is a red line. Why? Human suffering. Human civilians. Civilians. Once you start attacking civilians, children, elderly, women, that's it. You lose any moral standing for whatever you say. Defending my right to, come on, what right? When you are abusing the right, for us, it's even worse. For us, the United States, when we say we stand for the rule of law, where is the rule of law when we turn our eyes the other direction? I'm ashamed. And it bothered me as an American. But I want you guys to know, us, the citizens, not the government. For us citizens, we don't even care for our government. I don't care for the government.
Most people here in the US don't.
We don't care for the government. I want you guys to know this. Because you won't hear much about it. But most Americans, they go about their lives. Some of them don't even know what's going on in around the world.
No, most people don't.
They don't.
Most people don't know. They see what they hear on the news. But even right now, the amount that Americans trust the news is at an all-time low. People don't trust it. Because over and over and over again, we've been told, oh no, this is the truth. This is the truth. And then the truth somehow changes to the complete opposite. And how do you trust that? When you've been lied to over and over and over again, how do you end up trusting that? And quite frankly, I think that the position that Netanyahu has sort of taken and we might show some of these videos on Rumble. We can't show them here, but some of the positions that he's taken have been a really hard line in terms of like, we're going to obliterate you off the face of the earth. That's rough.
Yeah.
That's a rough narrative that the rest of the world, I think, is having a hard time swallowing.
So the Muslim world, or the Arab world for that matter, now it's going to be a matter of, are we going to just keep talking, or they're going to have to act? And what you're seeing now, the possibility of Saudis taking the lead on that. Because could the Saudis provide weapons to certain groups? The answer is yes.
Well, they've got them.
The answer is yes, because they've done the same in Afghanistan before. We are aware of this. It's just that's how it works. But that means what? That means widening the conflict beyond. And at the end, who's going to be suffering? Civilians. That is where the problem. Because when you think about Gaza, you're thinking about the most dense part in the world. 2 million people live in that tiny square mileage. Very small. But it's been built up. Qatar provided money. Gulf states provided money. They rebuild all that. But it's been so.
Well, one more thing that I want to touch on, and that is Mossad director David Barnea visiting Qatar over the weekend and not really returning with anything fruitful, right?
No.
So first of all, not very many people talking about the fact that he visited, right? Yeah. And then nothing came out of it.
Well, you know why he's there?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Why is he there? Why do you think?
That's a great question.
Why do you think he's there?
Why do I think he's there?
Yeah, I'm going to ask you that question.
Okay.
Why do you think he's there?
So I think he's there to at least give so he's not there to do what he says he's there to do. Okay. That's my take on it.
That's true.
And so what he says he's there to do is to broker some kind of agreement, some kind of peace. I don't think that's what's happening.
No, that's not he's there. He's there for the spy case of the ADN military. That's what he's there for, because they're going to be executed. Or they're going to be executed. Yeah. The reason being, FYI, guys, you can check my other channel. There's the video there. I don't have the link here.
Let me see if I can find the link.
Actually, I could pull it out here.
That's okay. I'll find it. You keep.
The reason being because Qatar has a submarine program they're working on, and specifically has to do with certain technologies in radar, which means that the submarine will not be detected. And Israelis wanted to know how far is that program is. That's where there's 8 former Indian naval officers, including a commander. There were 8. I had the names of those individuals. I had to dig into this, my own sources, to find all that stuff up. Then Israel, because they were spying on behalf of Israel. They weren't even spying on behalf of India. And the reason being because Israel and India exchange military technologies, even though Israel sometimes share technology with India behind our back. They won't share the sensitive stuff, but they do share certain things with India. This is why the Prime Minister Modi flipped. He used to support Palestinians. He flipped to support Israel. So that is the reason why the head of the Mossad is there. No other reason. No other reason, because they wanted to find out. Espionage cases don't get the coverage that you may expect because it's sensitive by nature. There are certain diplomatic channels behind the scenes, but even with that, it will never get a full coverage, because that's just how it works. Because the same it happens for.
All right, guys.
Other cases.
One of the things, what I have scrolling on the bottom is David's. David has a live channel, and I have it scrolling across the bottom. So David goes live pretty much every day, almost every day.
Yeah, when I get a chance to.
Yes. So here I have that, and I'm going to post it in the chat also. And then I have a channel on human behavior and why people are acting the way that they are acting right now, because it really is kind of crazy. Oh, here, David,
so
I have it.
The video. That's the video itself.
Stick that in the chat if you can, because they can't click on it from there.
All right. There we go.
But
I'll put it for you guys.
And let's see if we can take a question. Do you guys have any questions?
Well, let me just summarize this quickly here, guys, for you to know. Just to put this in perspective for you. Saudi statements, it's a direct, like I always call it, diplomatic slap on the US face. Because to me, the idea of Mohammed bin MBS, who unquestionably is going to become the king once his dad pass away, unless he is taken out. Uh, it's a foregone conclusion that the U.S. administration will have to deal with him. They are concerned that MBS is shifting towards China, but now these statements just support that argument that he's in position to say to the U.S. directly, face to face, you better get your act together or we will be stepping in.
Okay. Let me see if I can find a question. And guys, if you can put the word question on top at the beginning of the question so I can see it really easily. Okay, so I love your analysis, Mr. David.
Thank you.
Question. Let me see. I'm going to read this and I'm going to read it without a particular word so that YouTube doesn't flag it. Why is the Arab world at least not threatening Israel, the US, and the West, supporting this conflict?
Yeah.
As you guys know, we can't always say some of the words you ask. So, with oil sanctions.
They was just thinking it won't be a repeat of 1973 if this is what you are getting into. You won't see a repeat of that because the dynamics on the geopolitical landscape have changed from that time forward. Now, where the Arabs fall short, Arabs tend to talk a lot. There is a saying in Arabic language. It goes like this. For those who speak Arabic, it says "Tafaq al-Arab ala Allah yattafiqu," which translates basically to Arabs agree not to agree. They talk a lot. It's in action that you will find out. And they can, despite their massive amount of weapons they have, whatever. Yes, they could have threatened that, but that's going to create more rift. Because remember, sometimes, yes, you have to push back, but sometimes you have to be very strategic about how far you can go. This is why I'm saying there's 4 countries that agreed. Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, Sudan, and Morocco are now in a bad spot politically. Because even in Morocco, to my knowledge, there were some demonstrations there, and the government allowed that to happen because there's nothing they can do about it. It's because, it's mind-boggling when you hear the king of Jordan saying this and saying that, when in reality, they could have sent in the Arab troops to protect the civilians. Why aren't they doing that? They're too weak, in my opinion, and that's how I see it.
Okay, last question, and this is an interesting question about oil also. Deo Cole, question, do you think the U.S. anticipated this and released the sanctions on Venezuelan oil?
Not necessarily. The reason why the U.S. went ahead with lifting of some sanctions, not all of them, is because our SPR, Strategic Petroleum Reserves, is going down. We're usually supposed to keep certain limits in the SPR, and it's going down because you see most of the oil is being shipped to the east. Of course, there is no more oil from Russia into the world market, but it's going to its allies. Whereas the US, we're seeing the SPR because we have to tap into our SPR, Strategic Petroleum Reserves, and we're seeing the numbers dwindling down. So Biden had to reach out to Venezuela, actually, when they met during the summit recently, and lift some sanctions, which shows our hypocrisy, basically. You sanctions countries, and all of a sudden, when you need help, you're going to beg them. It's very degrading. To me, it's humiliating on the international stage because it was Biden himself that shut down the key pipe Keystone when he came on board. Can you imagine if that key pipe was open today? We won't have an issue. So that's why I'm saying Biden is so weak. He's not even deserved to be a president because he's not qualified for it. But it's coming to an end, and we'll deal with the next administration.
Which is its own real challenge.
Yeah, that's another one. So
challenge.
Anyway, guys, I hope you join us tomorrow for live stream. Okay, we're doing live for Rumble tomorrow, right? I always get them mixed. Anyway.
That's okay.
But anyway, that's
and also next week we're not going to have a live stream, but we are going to have recorded videos. I'm getting married this weekend, and so we're taking a week off from live streams. Unless you want to do
no,
one.
I might, but I have I'm gonna be out. Also, I'm gonna be out of the country, but I might. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
So either way, next week, if you don't see us for live stream, it's because I'm going on a honeymoon.
Well, you deserve it. So you take a break. And by the way, do you guys know that Elizabeth is the producer of the show? Yeah, because nobody give credit. There are two other people behind the scenes that wants to remain anonymous. I respect their decision. We never cross that. But Elizabeth is the main producer of the show. So whatever you see, guys, thanks to her. I am not this tech savvy, FYI. If I weren't for her, it will be no channel. So we thank you so much on behalf of everybody else.
I really appreciate it.
So you guys, hope you find this very informative. Be on the lookout for a video we're going to be releasing soon. A scripted one about
we've got a couple of big coming
will be coming. Be on the lookout for that.
We've got a big one on Netanyahu coming up. We have one on the unlikely alliance between North Korea, Russia, China, and Iran. So some of the intricacies there.
Yeah.
We have a bunch of recorded videos coming out for you guys.
We will do all this for you. So, well, guys, remember, please to hit that like button, because that's how you move us in the algorithm and help us out cross over that 100,000.
Yes,
because we're so
close.
Thanks to you guys. So we appreciate it. We're doing it in a methodical way. You know, that's how we are moving forward, because credibility matters.
Yeah.
That's to me how I look at it. As always, prepare yourself for changing world order. Till next time. Bye-bye.